Hey everyone, this is your second lecture for week one, and I wanted to talk to you about transformational learning. Transformational learning comes from a educator called Jack Mezirow. Jack Mezirow looked at how adults learn and realized that there is a certain action that has to take place, and also that assumptions have to be challenged for us to really learn. Now, this transformational learning goes very closely with the scripture that we have in Romans of be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. That's sort of a basis that comes with this. And so Mezirow thought that one of the things that happens is our mind, we begin to settle ourselves. Some of you have heard me use the example of a Chinese checkerboard with marbles in it. And then you have to come along, they settle down in these little divots and they won't move. And you have to shake it to make it move. Mezirow sort of sees that as a necessary thing to take place for adults truly to learn and to leave behind assumptions that may be false. So that's what renews our mind. That's what transforms our mind. And it's also a means of helping us to become reflective and fall deeper into learning. So what he thought was first we had to have this critical reflection take place. Critical reflection is the same thing you'll hear quite often. People talk about critical thinking. Critical reflection is a type of critical thinking as well. They go hand in hand. And so what Mezirow thought was that critical reflection allows us to look at our assumptions and say, now, is that true? Is that, do I know that is true? And by doing so, we tend to open up avenues to understand things in a deeper way. Our minds tend to enjoy settling in that board, in those divots, and not moving. It makes us comfortable. Critical reflection and critical thinking makes us feel uncomfortable because all of a sudden we find out that something we believed for the longest time may not necessarily be true. And what happens is it's like a scar tissue, and then there's healing on top of it, a new layer of skin on top of it. That's what critical reflection can do. Now, let me warn you, critical thinking and critical reflection is not the same thing as skepticism. A lot of people conflate the two. It's not the same thing. Skepticism is a self-refuting worldview, and it only wants to tear down what are held assumptions, even assumptions that you come to that you have some belief that is true. You will begin to start. Skepticism will cause you to start tearing that down. Critical reflection makes us look at what we believe, make sure that it is founded well, make sure that we truly believe it in a true fashion of true belief, and then we build constructive and positive on top of it. There's a lot of people in the church that get caught into skepticism. And quite often, when they do that, they fall away, and everything the church does is wrong. All the tradition is wrong. Everything that I was told in the church about the Bible is wrong. That's a type of skepticism, and you need to avoid that. Our culture is steeped in it. You want to do critical reflection. It does an honest examination of our beliefs, our attitudes, the assumptions we have in and out of the church. And then when that's shaking, all of a sudden we come back in and we bring it back together. We make it whole again, is what we're trying to do. And this is why transformational learning by Mezirow has been used so much in the church over the years. So the other thing that's important for Mesereau is not just critical learning, but then you have to have dialogue and discussion. We are social creatures, and much of our learning and our understanding of life and our transformation takes place in social action. That's just the way we are. I know sometimes you want to do your own work and you get frustrated with group work. I know how that feels because this is the way I've always wanted to do my work when I was in school. But there is something powerful about working with other people through dialogue and discussion. And other people help you do that critical reflection. They're going to challenge your assumptions. That's not a bad thing, that's a good thing. And most of us will probably agree that a good portion of our problem with politics is that we don't dialogue and we don't discuss. We anchor into our assumptions and beliefs, and we're not willing to hear someone else's belief. Now, again, let me caution you. Just because Mesereau says that there should be this dialogue and discussion and challenging of assumptions and beliefs does not mean that your assumptions and beliefs may not end up to be true. That quite often happens. Many of you in this class are very young, and one of the things, this is going to be an aha moment for you into adulthood. At some point in your life, you're going to look at something your mama or your daddy told you when you were growing up, and you thought, well, I don't believe that, or that's what they believed because that's what they grew up with, or that was their time. And then one day you're going to get to the point where you're going to see that the beliefs that you have mirror your mother and father's beliefs to some degree. It's a sliding scale, but you're going to mirror those most likely. And you're going to say, oh my gosh, I've become my mother and my father. What actually has happened is that there has been this rattling of your belief system, and then you've settled. And usually you settle in the things that you have found truth in the early part of your life. The church needs to do much more dialogue and discussion, but we're usually afraid that someone's going to call us out and say we don't believe the scripture, or that we're heretics, or something like that. Don't be afraid to sit down and talk to people who differ with you, because when they challenge your assumptions are only as strong as the weakest idea that you have. And also, this does not mean, which we hear again in our culture, is that we need to compromise in our ideas, and the compromise comes up with a better idea. That is not true. There are some ideas that are compromised that are horrible ideas. You need to come up with the best idea. And that best idea, after a discussion, may fall your way or someone else's way. You've got to be honest with it. So Mesereau says to truly learn and transform, we got to be willing to talk, to go through this social action of understanding. It's very important as a part of his transformational learning. Also, experience. Experience is a teacher, according to Mesereau. It is through experience that we come to understand the validity and the actuality of something. Okay? If it's just theory in our mind, then again, that's an assumption, and it'll find a resting place and it won't be challenged. But if you go out, for instance, if you think urban America, the poor people in urban America are all criminals, they take welfare and all of those things, and you actually, as a ministry, you go out and you do some project or something in one of those neighborhoods, that will challenge it. And the experience of it will come in and challenge your assumption and help you to build better ideas. That's why experience is so important in adult education. Churches would be better off. We tend to plan things to do in the church, and then we walk away. We have some donuts and coffee, and then we walk away. If you want a dynamic ministry in your church, as a part of whatever you're teaching, whether it's in a men's group, women's group, plan experiences where you will go out into in your community on mission trips or something, and you will see a greater commitment and a greater depth of spiritual formation from your folks. And then you want to, as a part of learning, you need action and change. Action and change. You want to do something. You want, as a part of your spiritual development, you want to incorporate something, the change that takes place in your life. You want to model that with action. Okay, you want to do something. It's one of the things that we know from the Gospels, again, that Jesus was action-oriented in his ministry. He did not just hang out in the synagogue. So you want when you're teaching someone, or when you're directing a new project in your church, make sure that you build into it this action and change, so that you can live out through these different things that you're doing a transformation, a constant shaking. Okay, so there are lots of ways of applying this. I will caution you that Mesereau's transformational leadership also has led to some bad things at times. Some people who are strongly oriented towards social gospel think that just going in and doing projects without the power of the gospel being preached is just as legitimately Christian, and it's not. We expect transformation. And then also in South America, the Catholic Church for a while took Mesereau, and they used it to develop an idea of the gospel for the poor that is sort of an economic system. And that's not what it's intended for. Again, it is transformational. It is not about transforming things. It's not a social project of transforming the structure of economics and things of that sort, which is what it's been referred to. That is referred to as liberation theology, and I'm sure that you have interacted with that in some of your other classes. I hope that's helpful, and believe me, when you're planning your projects, you want to make sure you use Mesereau, because his theory is very ingrained in the Christian idea.